Inside America's money crime underworld. Before we begin, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and stay until the end, because this story starts with blood on concrete and ends with a secret the prison never wanted exposed. The alarm screamed through Blackridge Federal Penitentiary at 2:13 a.m. Metal doors slammed shut across cell Block D while inmates pounded against steel bars, shouting over the chaos. Somewhere down the corridor, a man was screaming for help. Then came the sound everyone feared most inside Blackridge. Gunshots, not warning shots. Real ones. Correctional officers stormed the tier in riot gear while red emergency lights painted the walls like fresh blood. Smoke drifted through the corridor from a fire started in the laundry wing. An inmate lay motionless near the showers, his throat cut so deeply the drain beneath him looked black. Nobody moved toward the body. Inside Blackridge, survival depended on knowing when not to look. Marcus Reed stood silently at his cell door, watching the officers drag inmates face first onto the concrete. 3 years earlier, Marcus had been a respected Wall Street accountant managing offshore accounts for powerful clients. Then the FBI uncovered a billion-dollar fraud operation tied to politicians, hedge funds, and organized crime. The media called him the banker of ghost money. Blackridge inmates called him something simpler, the treasurer. White-collar criminals usually didn't survive long in federal prison, but Marcus had something more valuable than muscle. He understood money hidden accounts, and secrets powerful men would kill to protect. And inside Blackridge, information traded better than drugs. The prison itself operated like a city built on corruption. Guards smuggled phones through kitchen deliveries. Certain inmates paid for protection with cryptocurrency transferred through outside contacts. Isolation cells were rented out unofficially to prisoners needing somewhere safe after crossing the wrong gang. Everything had a price, even silence. Marcus learned the rules quickly after arriving 6 months earlier. Never sit with the Aryans during chow. Never owe the Colombians money. Never speak during count. And never ask why inmates disappeared from cell block C after midnight. Because everyone already knew. They were being used. The guards called it special transfer duty. Inmates called it the night shift. Nobody who worked it ever talked afterward. As officers completed emergency searches after the riot, Marcus noticed something strange. The dead inmate near the showers wasn't a gang member. He was Leonard Voss, a quiet former financial auditor serving 7 years for tax fraud. Marcus froze. Just hours earlier, Leonard had slipped him a handwritten note during recreation yard. 3 words. They're laundering here. At first, Marcus thought the old man was paranoid. But Leonard insisted Blackridge wasn't just corrupt. The prison itself was part of a massive money laundering network involving private contractors, federal officials, and inmate labor accounts worth millions. Then Leonard whispered one final sentence before guards separated them. I found the ledger. Now Leonard was dead, and during lockdown, while officers searched cells, Marcus discovered something hidden beneath his mattress. A small black accounting book covered in dried blood. On the first page were dozens of names. Judges, senators, federal officers, and next to every name, payments. The prison went into full lockdown before sunrise. No yard, no phones, no showers, only silence. The kind of silence that settles over a prison after somebody important dies. Marcus sat alone on the edge of his bunk, while the black ledger rested beneath a loose floor tile under his sink. Every instinct told him to destroy it. Inside Blackridge, possession of information like that was a death sentence disguised as paperwork. But curiosity was stronger than fear. He opened the first few pages again under the dim cell light. The handwriting was precise. Dates, wire transfers, offshore shell companies, inmate ID numbers. Millions of dollars moving through fake prison construction contracts and rehabilitation programs that barely existed. Certain inmates were listed beside coded transaction amounts. The deeper Marcus read, the colder he became. This wasn't prison corruption. This was an entire financial ecosystem hidden behind razor wire. And Blackridge was only one branch of it. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor. Marcus quickly shoved the ledger back beneath the tile just as Officer Grayson stopped outside his cell. Grayson was feared even among inmates. Tall, calm, never emotional. The kind of guard who smiled before violence. Rumors said he used to work private military contracts overseas before transferring into federal corrections. You knew Leonard Voss? Grayson asked. Marcus kept his face blank. We talked accounting. Grayson stared at him for several seconds too long. Funny thing about accountants, he finally said. They always think numbers protect them. Then he walked away. That afternoon, Cell Block D received new orders. 10 inmates were selected for night sanitation duty in the lower maintenance tunnels beneath the prison. Marcus' name was on the list. The other inmates looked at him with pity. Nobody refused night shift assignments. At 11:40 p.m., shackled inmates were marched to a freight elevator deep below Blackridge. The lower level smelled nothing like prison. No sweat, no sewage, bleach, fresh paint, and money. Marcus immediately noticed armed private contractors guarding steel doors underground, not correctional officers. Contractors. Their uniforms carried no names or badges. Inside the underground processing room, inmates sorted stacks of financial documents beside industrial shredders and high-speed printers. Others repackaged cash into sealed containers marked as prison supply shipments. Marcus realized Leonard had been telling the truth. Blackridge wasn't just laundering money. It was cleaning entire political fortunes through fake inmate labor programs. One prisoner worked beside Marcus in silence for nearly an hour before whispering without looking up, "You're the accountant?" Marcus nodded carefully. The inmate slid him a folded piece of paper beneath the table. "Leonard trusted you," he muttered. Before Marcus could respond, alarms suddenly exploded across the underground level. Not prison alarms. Security breach alarms. Red emergency lights flooded the tunnel as armed contractors rushed toward the elevator corridor. Someone upstairs was fighting. Screaming echoed through the ventilation shafts. Then gunfire erupted. One contractor shouted into his radio. He escaped the isolation wing. Another voice screamed back through static. "Seal the tunnels. Nobody leaves." The inmates froze in panic. Then the power died. Total darkness swallowed the underground level. Somewhere nearby, Marcus heard chains dragging across concrete. Then a voice whispered directly beside his ear, "You have the ledger now, which means they'll bury you next." Emergency backup lights flickered alive in violent flashes of red. The underground tunnel looked like a war zone. Contractors shouted through radios while inmates scrambled blindly through the darkness. Somewhere ahead, automatic doors slammed shut one after another, trapping men between steel barricades. The air smelled of smoke, hot wiring, and panic. Marcus pressed himself against the concrete wall, clutching the folded paper the inmate had slipped him before the blackout. Inside was a single sentence. "Find inmate 417. Gunfire cracked through the corridor. An inmate dropped beside Marcus, blood spreading across his prison uniform. The contractors weren't trying to restore order anymore. They were erasing witnesses. Then Marcus saw him, a massive inmate, moving through the shadows with shackles still hanging from one wrist. Bald head, scarred face, calm eyes. Inmate 417. The man grabbed Marcus by the collar and dragged him behind a maintenance door just before bullets tore through the hallway. "You kept the ledger?" 417 asked. Marcus nodded shakily. The inmate exhaled. Then Leonard died for something. They moved deeper into the service tunnels while chaos consumed the prison above them. Sirens screamed through ventilation shafts. Somewhere in Cell Block D, inmates had started a riot after rumors spread that guards executed prisoners during lockdown. Blackridge was collapsing from the inside. As they ran, 417 finally revealed the truth. His real name was Daniel Mercer, a former federal investigator who disappeared for years earlier while building a corruption case against private prison contractors, politicians, and financial executives laundering billions through federal incarceration systems. They buried him inside Blackridge under a fake inmate identity. Every prisoner selected for night shift had either discovered the operation or become useful to it. Leonard Voss had been preparing evidence for months. And now Marcus possessed the final piece. The ledger wasn't just financial records. It was a burn list, proof tying powerful people to murder, bribery, election financing, and illegal inmate trafficking across multiple prisons. Mercer led Marcus toward an abandoned intake chamber beneath the East Yard, where an old emergency communication line still worked. If they could transmit the ledger outside before the contractors regained control, everything would explode publicly by morning. But Officer Grayson was already waiting there, calm, unmoving, a shotgun resting against his shoulder. "You should have stayed in your cell," Grayson said quietly. Mercer stepped forward first. "You kill us." The file still reached the press. Grayson smiled slightly. "No," he replied, "but your death sent a message." The gunfire deafened the chamber. Mercer shoved Marcus sideways as the blast tore into his chest. Blood sprayed across the concrete wall, while Marcus crashed beside the communication terminal. Grayson pumped another shell into the shotgun. Then the prison lights suddenly died again. Above them, inmates erupted into full riot. Explosions thundered through the facility as fires spread across Blackridge. Sprinklers activated. Steel doors malfunctioned. Somewhere nearby, contractors were being overwhelmed. Mercer, dying on the floor, grabbed Marcus' arm with bloody hands. "Send it." Marcus connected the terminal line with trembling fingers and uploaded every page of the ledger to multiple news agencies, federal watchdog groups, and public servers. Within seconds, the files were gone. Outside Blackridge, permanent, Grayson lunged toward him just as armed federal response teams stormed the chamber from the upper tunnel entrance. Orders screamed, weapons drawn. Chaos swallowed the room. Marcus never saw who fired the final shot. 3 months later, congressional hearings exposed a nationwide prison laundering operation tied to federal contracts worth billions. Officials resigned. Executives disappeared. Several witnesses died before testifying. Blackridge Federal Penitentiary was permanently shut down. Officially, Marcus Reed survived the riot. Officially, Daniel Mercer died during inmate violence. But inmates who transferred out of Blackridge still whisper about one final secret. The burn list contained names that were never released publicly, and somewhere, the remaining men on that list are still free. Subscribe if you want more prison stories they'd rather keep buried.